67 cents on the dollar. That is the wage gap between black women and non-Hispanic white men. With that calculation, it would take a black woman almost 19 months to make a white man's annual salary. Again, looking at averages here. In other words, working all of last year and up to today this year to equal what a white man earned just last year. There's a lot of focus on closing that gap. And joining us live right now is Sandra Quince. She is the CEO of Paradigm for Parity, a coalition of more than 140 businesses working to close the gender and racial gaps in corporate America. I know, Sandra, you spent 25 years working for Bank of America, managing its Global Diversity and Inclusion Council. We appreciate you taking some time for us. And tell us what Black Women's Equal Pay Day today means to you.
Yeah, so certainly, and thank you for having me on and for celebrating this today and having this discussion. And what it means to me is it means that we need to continue the dialogue and the conversation. And what you just shared really just sort of symbolizes where we are today from a wage gap perspective. You know, we have to allow for this conversation and for companies and organizations to really lean into this and to be thoughtful around their business strategies along with their diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies to ensure that we are allowing to close this wage gap with Black women.
There have been some worries that the recent Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action could further exacerbate this problem. Is that something that worries you?
So while certainly the Supreme Court decision is worrisome, what it does tell us is that it's a wake-up call, right? And it means that while we've made some progress over time, we have to continue to make progress. And it's not only the right thing to do, but when companies really think about how to create a more inclusive and diverse work environment, they create employees that are more engaged. You have more clients, you're 30 to 40% times more profitable, as well as the fact that you're more innovative. And who wouldn't want to be more profitable? So what I would say is, while yes, the decision is worrisome, the companies that we're speaking to, the organizations that we're interacting with are staying steadfast to their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You have become very successful in corporate America, and I know there's a lot of focus among big companies in this country to address this. But what about just people watching right now and what they can do to try to close this gap?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are always three things that we talk about with companies, especially at Paradigm for Parity. Number one, you have to hire, right? So hire diverse candidates into your companies. But more importantly, once you hire them and get them in the company, the other thing that you can do is create the right environment to ensure that you're developing talent in your organization. And last but not least, you have to find ways to keep that talent there. So thinking about how do you ensure that that talent will stay in your organization because you're creating the right environments. And so that's something that people can do, is to make sure that they understand what creates the right environment for an inclusive environment, and ensure that they're helping to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within their organizations.
Sandra Quince is CEO of Paradigm for Parity, a coalition of businesses working very hard to close the gender and racial gaps in corporate America. Thanks so much for coming on and talking to us about this.
Thank you so much for having us.